Pivot how the world sees you in 3 steps. That's our topic today. I'm Michelle O'Neill with the Divorce to Dynamite podcast. Sitting on the couch all alone. I was in my new apartment. I didn't have a whole lot of furniture. I was newly single and he had kept all the furniture. I got out, I wanted out, and I had to go find a new place to live. And negotiating over the furniture was just too much trouble. I managed to go and find a used couch and a bed, and I spent the money on a new mattress because, used mattresses are gross. I was sitting on that couch. I was mad. I was sad. I was angry. I was dejected. I felt rejected. I felt all of the emotions, conflicted as they were, that anyone feels whenever that relationship ends. And frankly, I didn't like the bitter, angry, sullen person that I had become at the end of that relationship. On that couch, I sat there and I was reflecting on how angry I had become. I felt like all I did was yell and scream and frown. And I felt like I just never smiled. I never laughed. I never found joy in anything. And then I found myself alone, just alone. I couldn't be angry anymore. I couldn't be anything other than alone on the couch. I was sitting there filled with regrets, filled with questions, filled with just emptiness. And I sat there and thought about all the things I could have done differently and whether doing any of them differently would have made any damn difference. I didn't really know what to do next, except that I knew that I didn't want to be the angry person I had been. I didn't want to be the person who spent every day yelling, who spent every day angry, who spent every day picking everything apart just to find something to be mad about. And I searched for a way out of being that angry person. I thought about, how do you change the person that you've become? How do you become somebody different? The word pivot, such a buzzword these days, but Madonna changed who she was how many times? 7, 8, 9 times. All of a sudden, there's a new Madonna. Cher changed who she was so many times. All of a sudden, there's a new Cher. Diet Coke changed who it was so many times. Diet Coke with cherry, Diet Coke with vanilla, Diet Coke with sweet and low, Diet Coke now with Splenda. Diet Coke could change who it was 7 or 8 times. Surely I could change from a sullen, angry person to somebody else. I just had to find a way. I had to figure out how to be a different person. I had to figure out how to pivot So I did an exercise. I wrote down all of the words that I thought described me. I wrote down all of the words that I thought that I was. Caring, nice, strong, smart, concerned, giving. And then I found a trusted friend who had known me a long time, and I asked her to write down the words, the 5 words or so that she thought described the person that I am or that I was in that moment, that people used to describe me when I wasn't in the room. In other words, I asked her to use the words that people used to describe me behind my back. How do people talk about me behind my back? And the words that she used to describe me, that people used to say behind my back, were angry, frustrated, mad, bitchy. And I spent a lot of time reflecting on the gap between the words that I thought I was, the words that I felt I was at the core of my being, the words that I wanted people to see me as, the words that I felt I was at my core, versus the perception that people had of me that I was giving off. And I searched. I read books. I studied transformations. I studied pivots. I studied it in the branding sense of things like Coca-Cola. I studied it in the personal sense of how people change. I had coaching. I talked to people that went through transformations. And I spent years doing this and studying this. And I learned that we all have the ability to pivot from where we are, the person that we have become, the person who through life's circumstances we have turned into, to a new person, to something else. I learned that you have the ability to go from the angry, sullen person to the nice, sweet person, from the bitchy, dejected person to the outgoing, happy person, from the person sitting alone on the couch to the person who has friends that enjoy spending time with her. I learned this, that there are basically 3 steps to pivoting and to changing from how you have been perceived by the world to how you want the world to perceive you. Step number 1, you have to get clear on who you are. You have to do a fair assessment on who you are now. I had to figure out who I am at the core. Not who he wanted me to be, not who I had become, but at my core, who am I? What are those words that truly and accurately at my core are the things that God has created me to be. Strong, purposeful, strategic, smart, giving, caring. Those are the words that at my core I found that described my authenticity, my genuineness. But I also had to admit that there was a gap between those things that I felt that I was and I knew that I was at my core versus how the world perceived me. And then I had to evaluate how I could show up differently in my relationships, how I could present myself differently in my relationships so that others would see me in my authenticity, in my real and genuine core. The second step, you have to be consistent in how you show up in every situation. You have to remember those key words. Pick out those key 5 words that you describe yourself, that you want the world to perceive you as. And you have to be consistent in how you show up to the world as those words. You have to show alignment in how you show up as to your friends, to your family, and to your social media. You have to be consistent in your 5 words that describe you, that you want them to use to describe you, especially when you're not in the room. Be consistent in how you show up. And never let anyone get you off your game. Even when you are losing your temper, even when the universe is trying to set you off your path, you have to remember those words and be consistent in how you appear to the world in every situation. And the third step, you have to be constant. You can't change how people see you if you are not visible to the world. You cannot pivot if you're hiding. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to stay connected to your friends, to your family, to your social media. You have to put yourself out there. You have to stay visible. You have to get face to face. You have to go to events. You have to get out there. You can't hide on the couch alone in your apartment. Go to lunch. Be online. Do your Facebook Lives. Be on Instagram. You have to be constantly out there in order to pivot how the world perceives you. And then you have to repeat the exercise of how you want to be perceived and the gap between how your friends and how others are describing you behind your back. And you have to repeat that even if it hurts your feelings until there is no longer a gap and the people are describing you identically to how you identify yourself authentically. Then you will know that your pivot has happened. Then you will know that you have accomplished your goal of changing how you arrive at the world. It takes time. It takes time. This isn't going to happen overnight, but it will happen. I believe that we can all change and grow. I believe that we can all do this. I believe that you can make progress toward your new life by changing how you came out of your old life. I created a community for women after divorce to help you do just exactly this, to help you seek personal growth, support, and friendships It is the perfect place to pivot yourself. It is the perfect place to show up as the you that you authentically want to be. It is the perfect place for the new, better you to show up after your divorce. And all you have to do is join. It is a Facebook group, Divorced to Dynamite on Facebook. Maya Angelou says, do the best that you can do until you know better, and then do better. I believe in you. You can do this. You can pivot. You can pivot how the world sees you in just 3 steps. You can do this.